Now that you've completed the units on parts of speech and recognizing subjects and verbs, you're almost ready to learn how to avoid sentence fragments, run-ons, and comma splices, which are the three most serious errors that we writers can make. But before you can complete that unit, you need to know how to identify three different types of word groups. In English, words fall naturally into groups, and there are three types that can be combined to form complete sentences. Those three are phrases, dependent clauses, and independent clauses. Let's look first at phrases. A phrase is a group of words that lacks a subject, a verb, or both, and cannot stand alone as a sentence because it does not express a complete thought. Let's look at some sample phrases. A team of athletes. To the store. Waking up to the smell of coffee. Mary's brother John. Now, none of these words actually has a subject or a verb because really none of them have a verb. In fact, some of these word groups could be used as the subject of a sentence, such as a team of athletes. But these are all phrases. Notice that phrases can vary in length. Always keep in mind that length is never a consideration in determining whether a word group is a phrase, a dependent clause, or an independent clause. Another word group in English is the dependent clause. A dependent clause has a subject, and it has a verb. In fact, all clauses have subjects and verbs by definition. But a dependent clause cannot stand alone as a sentence because it does not express a complete thought. Let's look at some sample dependent clauses. If Mary passes the class. Although John studied hard. When she goes to the store. Now, notice that each of these word groups does have a subject and a verb. Remember that to find a verb, we look for action words or forms of the verb to be, such as is, are, was, and were. Then, once we found the verb, to find the subject, we ask who or what performs the action, or who or what is, are, was, or were. In the first word group, passes is an action word, so it's a verb. If we ask who or what passes, we see that the answer Mary is in the word group. Since there is a subject and a verb, the word group is a clause. But it's a dependent clause because it does not express a complete thought. The reader is left wondering what will happen if Mary passes the class, and the other word groups have the same problem. The reader doesn't know what happened although John studied hard, or what happens when she goes to the store. In order to express a complete thought, the word group depends on another clause. That's why it's a dependent clause. That takes us to an independent clause. The most common word group in the English language is the independent clause, and the reason that it's the most common word group is because every sentence must have at least one independent clause. An independent clause has a subject, and it has a verb, and of course we knew that because it is a clause. But an independent clause can stand alone as a sentence because it expresses a complete thought. Let's look at some sample independent clauses. She will be able to write well. John had time to spend with his family. Elliot slept. Now, each of these words has both a subject and a verb. In the first word group, for example, the verb is will be, right? That's a form of the verb to be. If we ask who or what will be, we see that the answer, she, is within that word group. She will be able to write well expresses a complete thought. Granted, we don't know whom the pronoun she refers to, but if this word group were in a paragraph, as it would be when we were writing, and that paragraph had been talking about a woman named Kate, we would know. Therefore, the word group itself expresses a complete thought. Every sentence must have at least one independent clause. An independent clause can stand alone as a sentence. It also can be combined with phrases, dependent clauses, or even another independent clause within one sentence. But every sentence absolutely has to have at least one independent clause. Otherwise, it's a sentence fragment. Now, in looking at these examples of independent clauses, which also could be sentences, notice that length again doesn't matter. Elliot slept is an independent clause. The verb is slept, which is an action word. And if we ask who or what slept, we see that the answer, Elliot, is within that word group. It is within that clause. Therefore, we have a subject and a verb within the word group. The word group also expresses a complete thought because it doesn't depend on another word group to finish the idea. The entire idea is that Elliot slept. It's all expressed within that one clause, therefore it's an independent clause, and it could stand alone as a complete sentence. Once you learn the information in this video, you should be able to pass the quiz on phrases and clauses. Then you'll be able to move on to learn how to avoid the three most serious types of grammatical errors that we writers can make, which are sentence fragments, run-ons, and comma splices. Thanks a lot. I hope that this explained phrases and clauses to you. If you have any questions, make sure to email me from an account other than Canvas, of course, at deborah.okey@csn.edu.